When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
This episode is brought to you by Microsoft Azure. Turn your ideas into reality with an Azure free account. Get everything you need to develop apps across cloud and hybrid environments, scale workloads, create cloud-connected mobile experiences, and so much more. Discover what you can create with popular services free for 12 months. Learn more at azure.com. That's AZURE.com. And sign up for a free account to start building in the cloud today.
First show jitters, folks. I guess it's been a little while, but what's going on? It's James from Offside in your ears, and I had to bring a familiar face on for the season kickoff of Offside, season number 8, by the way. Jim Biringer is with me. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
It's good, man. It's good. Better than it was. Weekend did not start off the right way. I know you're going to touch on it, but but better weekend. Labor Day's here. Summer's come to an end, and training camp is right around the corner. Back and better than ever. Here we go, baby.
Yeah, it's a good feeling always to be back. A little somber note to kick it off, and I know everybody's been talking about this, but it's something that has affected us all, really. Obviously, Johnny Hockey. Unless you're living under a rock, you've heard the news. Unfortunately, his untimely passing, the accident that happened late Thursday night. Me and you were talking about this via DM. We were hoping it wasn't true, that it was just a rumor. But as time kept going and no one talked about it and no one kind of refuted what was being said, you kind of had that weird feeling in your stomach that something bad and awful had gone on. And, of course, we lost Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew. And it's heartbreaking, man, when you lose 2 members of your family and you see all of the outpouring for both of them. You know, one thing for me, if I can take anything from Johnny Gaudreau, is he showed everyone, no matter what size you are, you can do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. Everybody told him for a long time that he was too small for the NHL, too small to play with the big dogs. So he'd get pushed around. Not only did he push back, he showed you can be a bona fide superstar and take yourself to the next level. So my thoughts, my prayers, and everything are with the Gaudreau family. An absolute tragedy, and of course his sister's wedding is supposed to be the next day. They're both supposed to be groomsmen. It is an absolute heartbreaker of a story, no matter which way you look at it. And I know you've been talking about it an awful lot. I mean, what is it? How does it hit you, my friend?
That's tough, man. Like you said, we were talking about it Thursday night, praying it wasn't the case. Like I said, I left you a message before I went to bed, letting you know that that was the case, and it was tough the next couple of days. Johnny Hockey, his brother, Jersey guys, very proud of where they came from, like you said. Showing the world that, hey, everybody can talk, say, you're not good enough, you're too small, you can't. There's no such thing as can'ts, man. That's where there's doubters, and that's the one thing I take away as well is, man, these guys, if you say you can't do it, I'm going to prove it can be done. And, I might not be a big guy. I may, be making my way in this world, in this media world, working my way up, hard work every day. But if somebody says I can't do it, you damn well no, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like Johnny Hockey, taking it all the way. I want to shout out also to head football coach Bill O'Brien, Boston College Eagles, playing here on a Monday night. During his pre-interview, when he was asked a question about what his team was going to look like under the regime there, before he even got into any details, he gave a shout out to the Goudreau family. Talked about Johnny Goudreau, his legacy up there in Boston College, and his brother as well. So I want to say stay classy. Bill O'Brien, you're one of the best out there. And it's just a tough day for hockey, tough weekend for everybody, outpouring of emotions. And again, he's just going to be missed. He's one of the good guys in hockey, and same with his brother, one of those good guys. And it's just terrible.
It's terrible. There's going to be a lot of different ceremonies and stuff happening this season as well, honoring him. A lot of players that have played with him, coaches have coached him. You know, he's been a part of a lot of different buildings, memories. I mean, Jaromir Jagr today showing that video, you know, the pass, you know, showing, again, the respect, the love for Johnny Gaudreau. So we kicked this season off with, like I said, a somber note, but a nice reminder of what a great person, not only him, but his brother as well, were to the hockey community. So thoughts and prayers with the Gaudreau family. And it's never an easy pivot, but we're going to make one here, and it's just going to get into the offseason that was for a lot of teams this year. I want to know from you. You cover a lot of teams. You talk about a lot of things. You see it on the sandwich board here. What was the big move? What was the one that you were like, ooh, hold on a second. That shifts some plates and is going to make a difference this season.
I mean, look, everybody knows the team that I cover religiously, but I do cover the whole league. Now, I could point to Steven Stamkos in Nashville. I could say Jake Getzel in Tampa. You know, I could go around and say, oh, what about Patty Kane staying in Detroit? You know, they're keeping their band together there. But I am going to say it's Jacob Markstrom in New Jersey because they needed a goaltender, and they needed a number one goaltender, right? They were trying to fill it in, you know, Jake Allen, Kaapo Kähkönen, and they made the move too late last year. And everybody could say, hometown bias, this and that. Look, I like the addition of Chris Tanev for the Leafs. You know, OEL is a difference maker for them as well. But if you look at it, New Jersey's issue was between the pipes. If they could have gotten a save, they're in the playoffs last year.
Yep.
And maybe the best thing for them was to miss so they could address all the needs that they had. You not only they had Markstrom, but you had Brendan Dillon, you had Brett Pesce, Paul Cotter, Stephanie. You add size to this team. You're tougher to play against. Your defense is better. But the big thing is you have a number one starting goaltender now that understands how to play high danger area. There's going to be a lot of shots, good rebound control. He showed what he could do with Vancouver. He showed what he could do in Calgary. He's just that number one true goaltender that the Devils needed. And to me, that's the biggest move of the offseason. I know other people can comment, say, hey, Stamkos, Getzel, you know, all these different moves. But to me, New Jersey needed number one goaltender. They needed a save. They got in Jacob Markstrom.
No, they definitely did. And that was something you look at that team and you say a few more saves here, there, and everywhere. They would have been a completely different team. They would have been in that playoff run. And I think they would have went a little bit further. So, yes, getting a goaltender there is huge. For me, the biggest move this offseason is a certain Penguin not striking his name on the dotted line for a contract extension. I don't care what you say. No one's talking about it because his name is Sidney Crosby. But the fact that Crosby is not signed with the Penguins, to me, is the biggest move this offseason because that is so much uncertainty on a team that needs some certainty right now. And I kind of got the inkling that Mr. Sidney Crosby is saying, hey, if this team is not in the playoffs, when trade deadline comes around, trade me to an original 6 team.
I think there's a lot of rumblings about Crosby and a certain original 6 team in this area that I live in because of what was supposed to have happened when the ping pong balls fell a certain way when he was drafted. I also know that he would love to go play with his best friend from Halifax, you know, where they grew up, they trained together, you know, Nathan McKinnon out in Colorado. Look, I think that deal's going to get done. I really do. I think Crosby's going to be there. But again, the longer this goes on, the longer it becomes, okay, why isn't Sid signed? Why isn't Crosby signed? Why isn't the captain signed? You know, we saw what happened last year with Steven Stamkos. Again, when training camp opened, he's like, well, I didn't get a contract extension, negotiations. We really didn't do anything. Everybody expected Crosby to sign July 1. It didn't happen. Then 8-7 came around. Okay, well, superstition didn't happen. My inkling has always been, okay, day one training camp, this is probably when it's going to get announced. We're going to get this thing done. But if it doesn't happen then, it doesn't happen at the start of the regular season, and this thing drags to the All-Star game and beyond, then you can worry in Pittsburgh that captain may not be staying. Because if the Penguins, which I don't believe in that Metro division and with the Eastern Conference as a whole, they're not a playoff team. They're an older team. Look, yeah, they got Rutger McGroarty. Okay, but does that make them a playoff team? No. Their goaltending is still suspect. Defense is older. Crosby's doing what he's doing at his age. Imagine if he gets one more time in the playoffs with a legit team. Say he goes to Colorado. Let's just have some fun. Say he plays with Nate McKinnon. Colorado instantly becomes the favorite to win the Stanley Cup.
Well, here's something, too, for him that he hasn't had to be in a long time. He won't have to be the number one guy for whatever team he goes to. Does he amplify the profile? 100%. But at the same time, that guy goes and plays on a team that is already built. Nate McKinnon, Boston with Pasta, the Rangers with Panarin, the Leafs with Matthews, Marner, Nylander. You go down the list. Montreal now. They might make some noise this year, bringing in Line A and the group coming together. Maybe he goes plays for his dad's team. But all of these teams already have players in position to be the star or the focal point. Will Crosby come in and make some noise and take some of that shine? Of course. But he doesn't have to be the de facto guy. So he can just go and have some fun. The shackles are off. There's no C on my chest. I'm just here to impress. And that man will dress to impress in whatever uniform he throws on.
Well, we know he wants to play a couple of more years. Look, he's going to play for Team Canada Four Nations face-off, which is going to be amazing. He wants to play in the Olympics next year. And beyond that, we'll see. I mean, look, everybody says, oh, it's a 3-year deal. Well, what if it's only a 1-year deal? What if it's a 2-year deal? It can be a year-to-year deal now for Crosby. He doesn't have to sign a multi-year deal. So I think the longer this thing goes on, I think Pittsburgh fans need to worry. But I think that the credence and the edict from management and from, not so much from management, but from the ownership group is to win with that group that they have with Malkin, Crosby, Letang. But the problem is they're not going to win with this team. It needs to be rebuilt and start over. You got to retool like Washington doing on the fly. At least they took the initiative to do it. And I'm really impressed with their offseason, what they did.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they're going to be a playoff team, but, they're going to certainly contend for one. But Pittsburgh, to me, I think, we want to see where these guys go and then start it. No, you should be starting it now.
Yeah.
You should have started it a couple of years ago when you should have chose, Letang or Malkin, not both.
Yeah, there's a lot of question marks, man, and that's why I say the biggest move for me this offseason is that contract not being signed, because that's a big shadow cast over that organization that is already in some turmoil. But we'll go to the but why move. What for you was a move you're like, but why? Why do you do that?
I mean, look, I don't want to keep picking on Seattle, but, I mean, I'm going to pick on Seattle. Chandler Stevenson's deal, to me, a little excessive. That one to me was like, whoa, okay. I know we got to spend money. That's a price for a number one center for a team that really doesn't have a number one center. Even Matty Beniers' deal is a little high. And again, that team doesn't really have a number one center because Stevenson can play the wing. We saw what he could do with certain players in Vegas. Is he a number one center? I think to me that's the contract that stands out and is like, okay, like, you're really going to put all your eggs in the Chandler Stevenson basket here.
Yeah, well, they did. Then that's what they're banking on him to be that guy.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's that guy. I don't think he's that guy. I think he's a good supplemental player, especially what he did in Vegas with the talent that was around there when he had to step up for Max Pacioretty. I just don't know if he can be the number one guy.
I don't think so. I don't think you're a guy. He's not a guy you build around or use as a building block. He's a guy you add to a team to make them go to that next level. So, yeah, I'll give you that one. The one for me is St. Louis with Broberg and Dylan Holloway. Those contracts are juicy. Those are juicy numbers for guys that probably shouldn't be getting juicy numbers. And I'm like, okay, I understand you want some young talent, but at the same time, you went and got young talent that maybe isn't so proven. And also, now you picked a fight with the Edmonton Oilers, who, by the way, they're up against it. We all know that.
Yeah, exactly.
They got to sign Draisaitl. They got to sign McDavid. I get it. But at the same time, you use the offer sheet method, down the line, there is going to be someone they pick from your roster, and they're going to do it back to you. Hello, Carolina, Montreal. Just saying, it might happen.
All right, well, I just want to touch on the Carolina-Montreal thing. I still don't understand why Carolina did that when Montreal just did all the legwork for them and got Aho in on a reasonable deal.
Yeah.
Like that one still doesn't that one still is like, okay, you overpay for Jesperi Kotkaniemi, fine. Montreal was probably never keeping him anyway.
No,
so you just did him. No, well, not even at a lower deal. They probably weren't keeping him. So better off for them. But again, Dylan Holloway's deal 2.2 isn't terrible. I think that one was more reasonable. The Broberg one at $4.5 million is high for me because, look, I watched Broberg play in a Stanley Cup final last year. He was very impressive for when he came in. But it's 10 games in the playoffs.
Uh-huh.
He's been up and down. Both guys were up and down. Holloway impressed too. 4.5 for a play. Now, maybe he's Torrey Krug's eventual replacement because we really don't know the status of Torrey Krug.
Yeah,
but
true
if Broberg can play at the level that he did in the playoffs, like he did for the Oilers, for the Blues, okay, fine. But good on the Oilers for not matching. I mean, yeah, does it stink to lose two prospects? Sure it does. But like you said, they're up against the cap. They got to sign, not only they got to sign Draisaitl, got to sign Bouchard, then McDavid. So even with the cap going up, it puts them in a cap crunch, and we'll see what happens down the road. Look, I was not taken aback, but I was very surprised with what Armstrong said, and he's like, well, there's really no gentleman's code. If I didn't get an email about it, then why would nobody used it? I know we were in a salary cap freeze with the COVID, but still, even before that, nobody was really doing it. So very interesting. And I'll give you that one. Those were two very, but why moves, especially Broberg at 4.5.
Yeah, it's a but why situation for me. Like I said, the offer sheet thing. And listen, I was on the Rob Peterson show. Shout out to our boy. We're both on there all the time. But hey, I said that I love the mechanism. I love the fact you're able to use it. To me, that was a but why one. It wasn't like it was a flashy name or someone that could really jumpstart your lineup with a team that was battling contract-wise with a young phenom-type player. This was just two guys that can really add into your lineup, but at a big price ticket. So that's where I was. I want to ask you, though, this offseason, we've seen a lot of different things happen. Teams move different players. Who's your riser this offseason before we even get started with training camps or anything? Just on paper, who's going up the ranks in your eyes?
Oh, team-wise, okay. Well, I mean, look, I think obviously the eventual next step for the Montreal Canadiens is to take the next step up the rankings and compete for a playoff spot. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I think it would be I just want to say it would be a disappointing season if they weren't playing meaningful games in March and April. But I think Detroit needs to take the next step for me. They were right there. They've been right there the last couple of seasons. They need to go over to the finish line and get into the playoffs this year in that Atlantic division. I think, we can all assume, and we know what assumption is, but I suspect the New Jersey Devils will be a better team this year with the additions that they made. But to me, I think, like I said, Detroit to me is a team that you have to look at yourself and say in that Atlantic division with the moves that they made, with the talent that they brought in, it's time for Stevie Y's team to take the next step. Now, they still have to sign a couple of RFAs that are out there, and I think it's important to realize that I think Detroit needs to look at what happened in Anaheim and get that done as quickly as possible. You do not want Mo Seider and Lucas Raymond missing training camp or a lot of training camp. Those guys were huge for that team down the stretch. But to me, I think it's the Detroit Red Wings in that Atlantic division. There is so much uncertainty with certain teams at the top that I think they're a team that can take advantage. They need to take the next step in that division.
All right, I'll go with you on that one. The one for me, and I mean, shout out to John Trache, voice of the Sens. He's going to be on the show this offseason before we get rolling again. I think the Sens, man.
Yeah.
I think the Sens are going to be a team that climbs up. They are another team that did acquire a goaltender that should be able to get things done for this squad. And they've added a little offensive punch. All their guys seem to be healthy, which was a problem last year. I think the Ottawa Senators might sneak in and scare some people in the wild card spot. I just have a feeling, which will add fun for me in the Battle of Ontario, having a little extra juice.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we talked about it last year. Like I've talked about it with a lot of people, like that bunch group. Like we talked about Detroit, Buffalo, Ottawa. Like who's going to take that next step right up the rankings? Look, Buffalo, I don't even know what they're doing. But I think Montreal is better than they are. I think Ottawa's better than the Sabres. Like I said, Detroit. So that's going to be a nice battle right there.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think the Sens, there were a lot of expectations last year on the Senators. I don't know how much the expectations are on the Senators this year, but I do agree. I think, they need to rise up the rankings too and actually be playing some meaningful games and not be eliminated by December, January.
Yeah, no, that definitely has to be something. So for you, what would be the Tumblr team? Who's fallen down the rankings? I got mine in my brain already, and nobody could tell me any different.
I mean, to me, I think, I don't want, East, man, we're saying East Coast biased here, but you look at the West, right? You look out West and you say to yourself, the Vancouver Canucks do not have healthy goaltending. That could be a team that could go down in rankings a little bit, but still be a playoff team. But look, is it hard to say, or is it too easy to say and too obvious to say the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to take a step back next year?
Why are you in my brain? That is the team, for whatever reason, I feel is not going to be cohesive with the Stamkos stuff that happened, bringing in Gensel, and I just think they've lost too much, and they're also another year older with a goalie who had back surgery. I know he was great last year, folks, but things catch up to guys. Father Time waits for no one.
Is that just too easy because it's the obvious answer? But I think Tampa Bay, look, I think they're going to still be good. I just don't think they're going to be as good as everybody thinks they're going to be. Look, John Cooper's a heck of a coach. They're banking on Vasilevsky being 100% healthy. But you brought in Ryan McDonough, but you wanted to place salary cap, financial stability with Steven Stamkos. So we have to move out Mikhail Sergachev, who was going to be the replacement for Victor Hedman. You pretty much gave Hedman the Stamkos contract. We're bringing in Getsel because, Stamkos' speed is an issue. Look, I don't know if that power play is going to be clicking like it was without Stamkos in that slot. Look, Kucherov's got a great shot, but he's more of a passer. Can you get Getsel into that bumper position? Look, I know some people have said, Tampa could surprise some teams. Ryan McDonough is a little older. He blocks a lot of shots. Look, I know he wants to go back to Tampa. They want to get the band back together. But you're taking on that full salary cap hit. You really couldn't do a lot of moves. And then you want to tighten the finances for Steven Stamkos, your captain. I think that's going to be an issue in that room. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, no, I think there's going to be a lot of problems. They're a team that was prided on their chemistry, prided on the way they did things as a group. And also, don't be shy at the fact that ownership is changing as well, which they say nothing will change for the first year, but you always know a new owner wants to get his fingers on things, wants to get in the ear of things and do things their own way. So once Vinnick goes out, this will be different.
Yeah.
So I think there'll be a different voice there over top as well, which could bring stability. It could bring guys not being happy, maybe things not being done the way that they're used to. So a lot of changes in Tampa, I think, could be a thing. The other team, too, was said in the comments here just a moment ago, Carolina, another team that definitely could take a step back.
Yeah, no, I agree. Carolina definitely going to take a step back. The issue is for me in the Metro, who's taking their place, right? I still think they're still a playoff team, and I still think they're one of the top 3 teams in the division because they have all their guys signed now, for the most part. But they did lose a lot. They lost a lot on defense, especially Pesci, who was huge for them. Yeah. And now he's in New Jersey. New Jersey's better. The Rangers are still there. But again, do we really think the Islanders are a better team than Carolina? Washington, again, I mentioned Washington. They had a great offseason, especially with the acquisition of Thompson to go with Charlie Lindgren. I think their goaltending has improved. Spencer Carberry, another year in the league. Look, I know that team's older too, but again, status of TJ Oshie, if he doesn't play, that opens up a lot of money for them to do stuff at the deadline, to get younger too. So I like what Washington has done in their offseason. Yeah, the Canes are going to take a step back. Do they win the division? Probably not. I think New Jersey's ahead of them. But but I still see them as a playoff team. It's not like Pittsburgh where I'm just like, I don't think they're going to be there. At Tampa, again, look at all the guys that are coming, like the teams that are coming there.
Yeah.
So I think that's a team that, you got to watch out for still because, Rod Brendamore's still a good coach. Like we talk about everything in the East, but like, everybody's talking, Minnesota, like, could they get in? I just don't know, like Dallas, like those teams. But I agree. Like Tampa for me is a team that I'm watching because so much uncertainty.
The cohesiveness is not there anymore. I can't wait to see it. Well, let's get to the meat on the bone for the last 7 or 8 minutes here with you on this beautiful kickoff for the season for Offside Hockey Talk. Of course, we are a Leafs podcast. We talk about the league, but when it comes to the Leafs, we spend our most time there. I want to ask you, the offseason moves for the Toronto Maple Leafs, the bashing, the Achilles heel, the loser part of this team, everybody always said was the defense for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the new D is here. You have Chris Tanev. You have OEL. You have Cade Weber, which is going to be a project this season, but seems to be a big shutdown kind of defenseman that they're going to try to mold. But this defense, with those additions, may be the best iteration of this defense we've seen in the Austin Matthews era. Do you agree or disagree?
I don't disagree, but I also don't think defense was their problem in the playoffs. They couldn't score. Like, they couldn't score in the playoffs. Like, Sheldon Keefe, the former head coach who is now in New Jersey, got that team to play defense when it mattered most. They just couldn't score. But to me, I think, like, I see it on the, our stat sheet here. Like, I know we'll get to Berube and everything. I like Tanev. Look, Brad Treliving knows him.
Yeah.
Had him in Calgary. You knew once he became available, he was going to Toronto. Made the most sense. But I like the addition of OEL, puck-moving defenseman. Nice physical presence, too. Look what he brought to the Florida Panthers in their Stanley Cup run. I think that's another good addition for that team who needs, like, stability on that back end. A lot of guys get hurt. Now you have, two warriors out there that have been through everything, especially OEL. He's got that mindset of what it takes to win. Maybe he brings that leadership to those young guys on that D-core and in the room that you need because, look, let's be honest, the Leafs keep hitting that wall in that first round for some reason. Outside of the year, they beat Tampa. But they got to everybody's got to buy in. Like, that's the big thing. You hear from the Florida Panther guys, everybody bought in. And I think that's what you got to get from the Leafs. But this is the best Leafs defense I have seen under this Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Nylander era in Toronto. 100%.
It is, and I do think there is more coming. Obviously, Yanni Hakanpää was supposed to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, but with the knee issues, I think the Leafs probably said, no, we're probably good on that. We experienced Klingberg last year. We're not going down that road again.
And just real quick on that, too, real quick on the Hakanpää thing, I think, probably they've been talking to the league, the PA, because I think the PA, or not so much the PA, but the NHL has been looking into this LTIR stuff. So imagine you sign a guy, can't really play, and then you just dump him on LTIR. They're going to be like, okay, so why did you sign him in the first place if you didn't know? So I think that's some stuff that they've been talking about. That's why there hasn't been an official announcement on the Hakanpää thing.
Well, there's that as well, but at the same time, the Leafs wouldn't be at the full threshold anyways.
No, exactly.
So they would have to get to that threshold to be able to go into LTIR, which I think this season they would rather be accruing the cap space towards the deadline instead of being in the LTIR, which is more difficult to maneuver around and do different things, and the possibility of losing players to waivers and such because you're so tight to it. So I think this year they may go the accrual route, not the LTIR route. But I agree with you. The defense, for me, this is going to be one of the best iterations. You also know that you're going to have stretches of no Chris Tanev. Yeah. Because the guy is an absolute warrior. So what do you do? When Kawhi Leonard was in Toronto for the NBA, for the Raptors, they did this thing called load management. Do you do that with Chris Tanev? Hey, you're in for the big games, in for the important games. Down the stretch, maybe load manage him so that way he's healthy and ready to go. Any bruises, bumps, snaps, breaks, this guy plays through it all, by the way. If you can let him heal some of those on some load management days, maybe you do, and let this guy be healed. But OEL brings an element that the Leafs haven't really had. They wanted Liljegren to be this guy. They wanted Liljegren to be a puck-moving kind of defenseman. He really hasn't grown into that fully yet. And last year, the only guy who could really break out the puck a lot was Morgan Riley. So now you have OEL who can do that as well, get the puck out, get the game going, get it going up the ice, keep that transition game going all the time, which is a lot more difficult for teams to chase you. When you don't have that throughout your defensive pairs, it sucks. And the Leafs can show you how badly it sucks because they can't move the puck out of the zone. So
I watched a lot of Leaf games last year. I saw them in person. When they can't move the puck out, they get pinned in there for long stretches of time. And I think OEL is a good replacement for Rasmus Sandin. Again, that's still a head-scratching trade to me because the way he's played in Washington, it's like, I don't understand why you moved him out. But again, I think that's a good replacement for him now. And you got two guys that can do it. Like you said, it takes pressure off Morgan Riley now just to be doing that all the time. So this is the best defense for me for the Leafs. Again, it's on the sheet. But again, can this defense protect the goaltending? Because I think the goaltending might have taken a step back this year.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. I think the goaltending actually took a tick up in my mind, but we'll talk in a second after Berube, because Berube comes in as a guy who's for the crest on the front, not the name on the back. He'll sit you on the bench. He doesn't care what your name is, what your status is with the team. If you're not playing the way it's meant to be played, he will let it be known. And you will have your arse stapled to the bench. He's a very vocal coach. He demands a lot out of his guys, but he also demands a lot out of himself. And he'll take accountability and lay on that shield. But if you're not doing what he needs you to be doing, he will not only let it be known, firstly in the room and amongst the players. He will make that known. But if you cannot take it from that point and fix it, next step for him is using the media as an outlet to let a guy know you're in the doghouse. And he'll let everybody talk about it and let everybody get in on it. Because, again, it's this on the front, not this on the back. That matters. And this is on the front is what's going to go through the playoffs. A group, a team, not a club, not a fun house, not a country club, but a team that is together to go through it. And I think Berube is the guy for it. Now, I went back and said this before. Mike Babcock was this kind of coach when he came in. But these young guys that were coming in, they didn't need a barking coach. They needed a coach to get them through the NHL, get them through the rigors, and Sheldon Keefe ended up being that voice. But now these guys are ready for that veteran voice that's going to push them harder and get every last drop out of them. I love Sheldon Keefe. I thought he was a great coach for the Leafs. He'll be a great coach for your Devils, but I think the Leafs now need a kick-in-the-ass coach. If you look at the two speeches in Game 7, we've all seen it, the Berube one and the Keefe one. I'm taking the Berube one in the playoffs every single day.
Yeah, no, look, Craig Berube, we know what he's done with the St. Louis Blues. Look, the year that they won the Stanley Cup, last to the champs. And everybody bought in, right? Guys were blocking shots, hard to play against, good defense. Look, they had Jordan Binnington. They went on this run. But there were times in the playoffs you were just like, ooh, okay, what's going on? Especially that first-round series against Winnipeg Jets. It could have gone either way. Because I thought, whoever came out of that had a potential to win a Stanley Cup. It ended up being St. Louis. They go in a hostile environment. Like you said, he knows how to hold guys accountable. It doesn't matter. We saw, in his final days in St. Louis, Kyrou, Robert Thomas, guys were getting called out in the media. Guys were being benched. Guys were being sat. If you don't play a certain way, you're not playing the rest of the game. And that's what they need. They needed new voices in the room, right? Love John Tavares, good captain for at that time. Now, new voice has to be Austin Matthews. Everybody knows it's Austin Matthews' team. Craig Berube comes in. Look, this is what we're doing here. Right, we know John's still going to be there. We know he's still going to be a leader in this team, but he's going to lead a different way and can focus now on his final year of his deal. But Berube is going to demand the respect in the room. He's going to demand the accountability. This is just going to be, hey, guys, we know you're a great regular season team. We know, it's a given. We're probably going to get to the playoffs. We got to be playing a certain style by the end of the regular season to know we can get through the playoffs. Because last year I thought they went through the grind. I'm like, okay, they struggled a little bit, got to get in, fighting. I was like, all right, this is the year. They're going to they finally figured it out. And they didn't. No. But I think Berube comes in there and says, hey, guys, everybody's got to buy in. No matter where you're playing, everybody's got to buy into the same system, and that's what we have to do to be successful. I like the hire. Look, very coveted coach, right? New Jersey was after him, but Toronto ended up paying him, getting him there because they really want him. They felt that this was the need for him. Boom, here we go. I'm very interested to see it because the Leafs come to New Jersey after they get back from Czechia after they play Buffalo. So I can't wait to see that.
Listen, and like I forget who it was, one of the coaches. Dean Emerson said, if you think that a game that my former team, any coach, any player says it doesn't matter, they are full of shit.
Yeah,
because it does matter.
It does matter.
Big deal. Everybody downplays it. He's like, that's crap. Everybody has that date circled on their calendar, and it's go time. Speaking of go time, is it Robertson go time for the Maple Leafs? Is this guy going to leave? For me, I say Nick Robertson. I understand where you are. I can empathize with the player. I can empathize with the team. This guy did not step up when he was given opportunity in the playoffs when William Nylander was down. That was his moment to shine, grab a hold of a brass ring, WWE terms here, and take it and run with it. He did not do so. In the regular season, though, 54 games played, 14 goals, this guy showed that he can do great things with limited time. He can get the job done, and he can be a top 6 player. And now with Bertuzzi leaving, there's an opportunity for him to be an offensive threat with this Maple Leaf squad in the top 6 or even the top 9, but top 6 probably. For me, I look at it and say, why not give this an opportunity, Nick Robertson, sign a 1-year deal or 2-year. Hello, Jake DeBrusk in Boston, wanted to be traded, signed the 2-year deal, did really well, went and got paid in Vancouver. Nick Robertson, there's a path for you here. There's a chance for you to play. Why don't you want to take it?
I agree with you. I just do think his time's probably ending in Toronto, but I do agree with you on it's similar to what we're seeing with the New York Rangers, right? Capo Caco signs qualifying off $2.4 million. They need a right wing, right?
Yeah.
All right. We got to give you an opportunity, but we just can't give you 1 or 2 games, right?
Yeah.
Look, Matthew Nyes, when he came in, boom, just took it. He's like, yeah, we can't take this kid out of top 6. Nick Robertson's been a struggle because he's been injured and he's never taken the opportunity when it's been given to him. And that's another thing.
No bombs for me on that.
No, look, guy's been injury prone and it stinks because when he's been in there, he's been very effective, especially in regular season. Now, playoffs is tough, Boston, all right, but still, you got to be able to produce. You have to be able to step into that position because that's what the Leafs need from you because potentially you're the future up there in that top 6. Like you said, Bertuzzi's gone. Domi's still there. I think there's a way to find chemistry. But, again, you can't just say, 1 game here, 1 game there. You got to be consistent. And if you don't see it in the preseason, look, I know everybody wants to say, preseason don't matter. Preseason matters for chemistry.
Yep.
I go back to it, New Jersey last year. Yes, they went undefeated, but they took away their chemistry right before the start of the regular season, kind of threw them off. Look, Robertson, I know he wants out. I say give it a little bit, see if you can get your game going, and maybe you become a high-value asset for this team later on if you still want out. Because right now, let's be honest, what you getting for Nick Robertson?
Oh, you're not getting a whole heck of a lot for Nick Robertson right now. That's my thing. This guy really hasn't shown consistency. There's been injuries. There's been times out of the lineup. And yes, I'll give Nick Robertson his due. He was the company man. He's the guy on the 2-way contract. Okay, I'll get sent down for cap reasons. I'm a casualty. But he started not to like that. He wanted to be able to gain that traction and chemistry. And I can't fault the guy for that, especially he steps in again, scores 14 goals in a limited role. On a team that needs goals. But again, you put him in the playoffs, this guy hasn't been with this group. You talk about chemistry, he hasn't been playing regularly. So that chemistry is not there for him.
No,
he
it's not.
Have that jump and go. So if this is going to be it, and you say Nick Robertson, you sit him down and say, listen, sign a 1-year deal with us. We will show you there's an opportunity here. We will show you there is a path to score. This is what we're going to do for you. Take it or leave it. And if he doesn't want to sign, I'm sorry to say, you're sitting for the year because you're not getting anything for him. That's some circumstance, in my opinion.
No, I agree 100%. I think, take the 1-year deal. Look, get whatever kind of money you want, whatever.
It's not going to be crazy money either.
No, it's not going to be crazy money. What, over $1 million, if that?
It'll come with one thing. It'll come with maybe a little bit more of a certainty that you're going to play. If you play, though, if you show up.
Right, because what about the guys that are coming up, right? Like the guys that they brought in, the guys that are coming up. Somebody could take his spot. We already saw Matthew Nyes do it. Why can't somebody else do it? He's just never turned into the guy that they expected him to be.
No, it was never that.
No.
And that's the unfortunate thing. But two Leafs fans always look at his brother and say, we got the wrong Robertson. No, we got the right one for our team. Right. He just needs the opportunity. And I think if he signs and the Leafs are smart, they make something wicked happen this season. He pops off for 25 goals.
Yeah.
And becomes the guy that we need in the top 9 to give us a little bit more homegrown cheap punch.
Yes,
which is what I like to call it. Speaking of homegrown cheap punch, Joe Woll and Anthony Stolarz in the net, cheap goaltending tandem this season. We all know Woll got his contract extension. I'm very high on Joe Woll. I've been that way for a very long time. I think this goaltender is very smart. I talked to Mr. Kevin Woodley. He broke down a lot of different things with Joe Woll and what he does. And anytime a goal is scored against him, he fanatically breaks down the tape to figure out where the miss was, where his miscue was, and how to recorrect that and rebuild that situation so he's good and ready to go. So this guy is not only a beast on the ice, a beast on the keys, by the way, as well, but he's also a beast in the film room. This guy wants to learn. He wants to devour knowledge. He also studies a lot of different goaltenders. We talk a lot about guys studying Sidney Crosby on the faceoff dot or Austin Matthews or Ovi on the one time. This guy is like that with other goaltenders, seeing what makes Vasilevsky tick, what makes Allmark so good, what makes Swayman so good. And the cool thing was Allmark was talking about how big of a goaltender Joe Woll can be for the Maple Leafs. That is a guy who just competed against him and said, this guy is stellar. If it wasn't for him, they would have been out a lot sooner. This guy saved their bacon. Why wasn't he in that game 1? So that makes me excited. And then you talk about experience. Hello, Stolarz. You just went on a run with the Florida Panthers and won the Cup. So now you can take some of that rub and give it to Mr. Joe Woll and show him what's up. And Stolarz is comfortable in a backup position, which is good because if you have someone nipping at your heels who wants your spot, it could create a little bit of a problem. Because not everybody's like Swayman and Allmark were in Boston where they loved each other and it was hugs all around. It's a competitive thing. This, I think, works for the Leafs, but I think Joe Woll, I think he's going to have a Vezina caliber season, my friend.
Hey, I love Joe Woll, right? I saw him play MSG against the Rangers to close out a season. Matthew Nyes was there too. He stood on his head. I love Joseph Woll. I think the deal is great for him. The big issue for me is he's got to stay healthy. Because he didn't stay healthy in the playoffs. I mean, look, Samsonov played great Game 7, but just imagine if Joe Woll could have stayed healthy in that game. Maybe we're talking with different outcome. Look, Stolarz, great goaltender. Hey, Jersey boy, shout out to Anthony Stolarz winning a Stanley Cup. Look, it's interesting because, look, everybody's high on Stolarz. He played with Florida. I want to see what he does with this Leafs team as a backup here because, like, say Joe Woll, like, look, does go down, knock on wood, he doesn't, but, like, can he take the starts there? I mean, I know Matt Murray is still in the organization. And look, we're going to see what his hips are too, because he'll see some action, in this preseason. But I like Joe Woll. He's the number one there. They got him that 3-year bridge deal, good term too. I believe $3.5 million AAV. Yep. Solid numbers. I mean, this kid is the number one there. And to have a veteran like that who's won a cup, who understands, who's played behind a guy like Bobrovsky, who knows he's probably not going to get a lot of starts, but he's going to get those back-to-back nights where, the Leafs play Montreal on a Saturday. Oh, they're playing, just say, for instance, they're playing Carolina on a Sunday. He's getting a Sunday game, and he's going to be prepared for that, and he knows how to come in and play well. And he's got a good defense in front of him. I mean, look, is it the quality goaltending that they need? We're going to find out. I mean, I'm still skeptical if this tandem can get it done. I'm very high on Joe Woll, but let's see if they can get it done. For the Leafs' sake, I hope they do. And they've banked on going this route because of what they have up front, and this is the choice that they had to go with. But again, I'm very high on Joseph Woll because I think he is their number one. And if he continues to play and his numbers continue to get better and better, the type of deal he's going to get later on a long-term deal.
Oh, no, definitely. I fully agree with you. So I think right now this goaltending tandem for the Leafs is great. And also you have Dennis Hill to be in the minors.
Yeah.
Who's another guy they're very high on, think he can do well. They had the Russian goaltender, Aki Yakumamov, or however you say it. I'll learn to say it as it comes along, but it's a long Russian name. Maybe we just call him Artie.
Yeah.
But, that is another prospect they have. Also, like you mentioned, Murray's there. This team is interesting in net for once. We everybody's like, oh, they should have went after Askarov. He's got 3 NHL games. We got enough young goaltenders right now where we want to see what we have in our own pipeline before paying for somebody else's. So I'll ask you this one last question, Jim, and I'm sure we'll have you on many, many times this season. Where do you see the Leafs finishing this year in the Atlantic with Boston making moves? Tampa, we think, will slip. There's going to be a Stanley Cup hangover for the Florida Panthers. Do the Leafs get a chance to top themselves on the Atlantic Division?
To me, I still think the Florida Panthers are still winning this division, even though there's probably going to be a little bit of a Stanley Cup hangover. But I do think the Leafs are going to have home ice advantage in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. I think they'll be ahead of the Boston Bruins in this division. I think they'll be the number 2 seed, and I think they'll finish second. Now, look, if Florida slips a little bit, they can finish in first. There's no reason they can't. They have the offensive weapons to do so. But also there's going to be, and they have to be able to calm these distractions, which I think they will be able to do because we know what there's going on with the Mitch Marners and the John Tavares deals and, the extensions or no extensions or what's going to happen next offseason when we're not there yet. But I think this team is a playoff team, and I think they're going to finish around the second place again, and I think they're going to make the playoffs, and they'll have home ice in the first round.
Well, that is music to my ears. I love the fact that we get home ice. I do think this team may top the Atlantic Division. We'll see what the Florida Panthers are. Obviously, they did lose some key pieces on the back end as well. Brandon Montour, OEL, and also guys were banged up too. So they started the season last year banged up, and they've gone to 2 Stanley Cup finals, So maybe it starts to wear on these guys. But, Jim, I thank you as always, man. Everybody, go check out Full Press NHL. Check out Jim over on Twitter. I will make sure, or X, or whatever they want to call it these days.
Yo, we call it a bird. I call it a bird. I don't know.
Fly high, my friend. Well, listen, I appreciate you being on. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is around here. We're back for Season 8. This is Offside Hockey Talk, where the Maple Leafs, Jim, and hockey come to talk.
Take care, guys. Always a pleasure.